You have ghosts, you have everything. If you have ghosts, you have everything. You can say anything you want, you can do anything you want. If you have ghosts, you have everything.
In the stillness before the dawn, there's a hum in the Florida air that sounds less like nature and more like a warning. It's the sound of the sawgrass whispering as the humidity builds into a physical weight, a saline embrace that clings to your skin like a secret you can't wash off. This is where the neon of the coast fades into the flat, ancient light of the interior, where the shadows don't just fall, they linger, reaching out from the scrub and the limestone. You are entering a landscape where the hunter and the hunted are bound by the same heat, where the line between them thins out until it's as fine as a fishing line taut against the current. I'm M.R. Floyd, and this is Innocent Souls in the Hands of the Yellow King. Alongside my partner of 25 years, Miami Night 17, we are your guides to the darkness that breathes beneath the dazzling glare of the Sunshine State and how it parallels the True Detective universes through Louisiana, California, and Arkansas. Tonight, we're stepping away from theoretical profiling and into the mud and grit of the field, the manhunt for the ghosts of the South. Taking you into a deep command center of one of the most grueling and complex manhunts to ever tear through the Southern Corridor. This wasn't just a case, it was a high-stakes psychological chess match conducted across state lines, through primordial swamps and into the darkest corners of human behavior. As the lead of the offender apprehension team, my co-host Miami Night 17 goes in depth on how offender apprehension is more than follow a trail of physical evidence. It was to get inside the head of a predator who used the geography of the land to mirror the fractures in his own psyche. We will go inside the Operation Command Center 20 years ago in the South to include the behavioral blueprint, the weight of command, and the intersection of duality. We'll be breaking down the defensible depth of an investigation, the resilience and psychological toll required to stare into the abyss until it finally blinks. We're also going deep into the mirrored landscapes of Florida and Louisiana. We'll explore how the heavy air and the shifting tides influence both the occult symbolism and the criminal elements that thrive where the natural world and the human underworld collide. On our special feature, Sons of Detectives, we'll look at the first glimpse of how a cold case becomes a family inheritance, how the investigative torch is often forced upon the next generation. Host Miami Night 17 goes in depth of how the Velcoro 3 generations of Season 2 True Detective displays this exact mindset. Transgenerational epigenetic inheritance. This concept suggests that extreme trauma can leave chemical marks on genes, which are then passed down. In a narrative sense, the sawgrass itself becomes a metaphor for this biological memory. And finally, on our Voices of the Innocent Soul segment, we're heading into Florida's Highway of the Dead, the Everglades. It's a natural cathedral of the dead where humidity erases evidence as quickly as the sawgrass swallows secrets. We'll be looking at that desolate stretch of I-75 known as Alligator Alley, a primordial swamp where the heat is heavy and the silence is absolute. Since the 1960s, there have been nearly 175 bodies discovered there, many remaining unidentified. The reoccurring motif of ritualistic dumping suggests that for decades, monsters have viewed the Everglades as a place beyond the reach of God or man. While individual cases are sometimes solved, the vast majority of the Everglade does remain nameless. The killers who use the grass as their graveyard remain in the shadows. If you've been walking this path with us, once again, make sure you're subscribed on all streaming platforms, whether that's Spotify, YouTube, Amazon, etc. For the Apple Podcast fan, look at the top right of your screen, hit that plus sign to follow the feed. Let's continue on this path together into the summer heat of the South. Tonight, we're moving away from the bayous and heading into the smog of Vinci, California. It's a place where the soil is toxic and the souls aren't much cleaner.
When I die, let the walls enjoy my bones.
We're dissecting Ray Vilcoro. He wasn't just a bad cop. He was a man moving with a specific kind of grief, trying to raise his son Chad, while his own life was a crime scene in progress.
It's that classic detective's dilemma, isn't it? Spend all day staring into the abyss, then you're expected to go home and play with model airplanes like the world isn't broken.
Is cholesterol terrible? Your liver's redlining? Can I ask how much you drink in an average week?
All I can.
Drugs?
Few.
And I'll just go out on a limb here and then guess that your diet isn't particularly healthy?
Well, this, had me thinking about changing some things.
Well, it's certainly possible to live with unhealthy habits. But it helps if you don't have everyone under the sun.
All right, am I cleared?
I take a couple days. But yeah, you're cleared. Barry says to clear you at any rate.
Great. All right, see ya.
Can I ask you something, Mr. Vilcoro? Do you want to live?
The core of this dynamic is the doubt. Ray is haunted by the idea that Chad isn't his, that he's a living reminder of the worst night of his ex-wife's life. Yet Ray chose to be his father with a violence that's almost religious.
That scene at the school, where Ray uses the brass knuckles on the bully's dad, that's the turning point right there. He thinks he's protecting Chad's honor. In reality, he's just terrifying his kid. Chad is sitting there with those broken sneakers, looking at his dad like he's a total stranger.
Hey, bud.
Dad?
Hey, Ray.
We're lying for a living.
All right, Ray. Let's talk about this later. Is it blood on your sleeve?
What happened to your shoes?
There was a little thing happened last week. Boys.
What happened?
What happened to your shoes?
Ray, goddammit. They took his shoes out of his gym locker.
And what? What, shit on him?
They cut him up. That's it. Christ, man, come on. This isn't good for him.
Who was it, boy?
Ray speaks the language of the gutter. He tries to whisper to a boy who just needs a father, but all Ray knows how to do is scream at the world on Chad's behalf.
Let's look at the professional side of things. Ray is a bagman for Frank Semyon. He's compromised. He wears the badge, but it doesn't represent protect and serve anymore. It's just a shield for his own decay.
And for Chad, kids aren't blind to the horror of a man who lost his soul. The supervised visits, the court-appointed observer watching them eat pizza, it's a clinical death for a relationship. It's tragic because Ray can navigate a conspiracy involving the entire state of California, but he can't navigate a 15 conversation with his own flesh and blood without a drink or a cigarette.
Where's Chad?
He's not coming.
What? Why?
You're gonna ask me why? Really? You fucking prick.
What, that thing at the school? I apologize to Chad, and it's between me and
That's
him.
not the end of the story, and you know it.
How's that?
The police said that someone beat up Wick Conroy. Said it had something to do with a schoolyard altercation.
Well, I don't know anything about that, but sometimes a good beating provokes personal growth.
It's not like you know any other way, right? God damn it. Chad gets anxious when he has to be around you. Do you get that? Do you even see it?
It's bullshit. We talk, we build models, we write letters. I got him this recorder.
And how many times has he written you back?
He needs me, right? Even if he doesn't know it. And if he gets anxious, it's probably because he knows he's gonna have to listen to his mom talk shit about his dad.
You're bad, Ray. You're a bad person, and you're bad for my son.
Don't say that.
And of course, we have to talk about the finale. Ray's on the run. He knows the clock has run out. He stops at Chad's school just to see him through the chain link fence.
That salute Chad gives him, it's the most detective moment in the series. It's the son acknowledging the myth of the father, even if the reality is a wreck.
Ray tries to upload that final voice memo, telling Chad he's a good man, that he loves him, and the bar just stays at 99. And Ray meets his unfortunate end in the woods.
You turn here, turn there, and then it goes on for years. Becomes something else. I'm sorry. For the man I became, the father I was. I hope you got the strength to learn from that. And I hope you got no doubts how much I loved you, son. And you're better than me. If I'd been stronger, I would have been more like you. Hell, son. If everyone was stronger, they'd be more like you.
And throughout season 2 of True Detective, we see this concept of transgenerational epigenetic inheritance. The concept suggests that extreme trauma can leave chemical marks on genes, which are then passed down. Season 2 also explores the family systems theory. This explores how patterns of behavior, specifically triangulation and differential self, are repeated across generations. A family in your story might be trapped in a cycle of violence because they lack the tools to break the emotional intelligence of their ancestors' mistakes.
Then comes the gut punch. The DNA results come in after Ray is gone. He was the father. All that self-loathing, all that distance he kept because he was afraid of what he'd find, it was all for nothing. Chad grows up with the badge and the photos. He inherits the legend, not the man.
Maybe that's the only way a son's detective survives. You keep the badge and you bury the man.
Don't go there, I heard her say. Can't stomach what you're gonna see. It's down there, the water's edge. Wasted and bloated and waiting for someone tied to the teeth and mouth. The sound of fury, shout of pain. There was no even reason, no gain. I can't go down to the water's edge.
We're pivoting now, moving away from the industrial city of California, back into the terrain that actually knows our names. People think the Florida-Louisiana connection is about the Gulf, but it's deeper. It's about land that refuses to stay solid.
Whether you're in the Louisiana bayou or deep in the Everglades, the landscape is a character. It's a labyrinth. In both places, the swamp is where things go to be forgotten, or where they go to stay hidden. You've got that liquid border, where the water and the earth are constantly fighting for territory.
It creates a specific kind of claustrophobia. You can see for miles across the Sawgrass prairie or a salt marsh, yet you feel completely trapped. It's the perfect setting for a noir because the environment itself is trying to swallow the evidence.
Then you've got the spirit of the place. Louisiana has that heavy Catholic voodoo supernatural element to it. The saints, Mardi Gras. Now Florida, especially as you move north from Miami toward the Panhandle,
blind to him as your footprints in the ashes, but he saw you.
it hits you with that hard-line, old-time religion.
He saw you in those dark corners.
The tent revivals, the fire, brimstone.
Oh, my brothers, he heard those thoughts. You are a stranger to yourself, and yet he knows you. And when your hard heart made you like unto the stone and broke you from his body, which is the stars and the wind between the stars, he knew you. This world is a veil. And the face you wear is not your own.
But don't forget the Caribbean influence down here in the 305. We have Santeria and Voodoo. It mirrors that New Orleans energy. The idea that the veil between this world and the next is thin. In both states, religion isn't just about something you do on Sunday. It's a force you negotiate to keep the shadows at bay.
It's a high-stakes faith. If you're living on a hurricane-prone coast, you want a god that can actually stop a storm or a curse. It's desperate, it's beautiful, and it's terrifying.
And crime in these two states feels different than the average heist in New York or gang war in Chicago. Here, it's a frontier crime. It's smuggling. It's the cocaine cowboys in Miami meeting the Dixie Mafia of the Gulf Coast.
It's the geography that dictates the crime. If you have thousands of miles of unmonitored coastline and bayous where a boat can disappear in seconds, you're going to have a thriving underworld. The criminals here aren't just lawbreakers, they're often local legends. There's a cult of personality around the outlaw in the South that you don't find anywhere else.
Drug dealing was something that was natural to me.
If you would have told us that we were criminals, we would have laughed. We're 20-year-old kids. We're just having fun.
Willie and Sal were the kings of cocaine in South Florida. They're first-generation immigrants. They thought this was their path to the American dream.
The most prolific drug traffickers in U.S. history.
All of Miami considered them local heroes because they were like the Robin Hoods. They always shared their wealth.
Basically, it's a Fortune 500 company run by a bunch of muchachos.
Cash, boats, cars. I'm not gonna lie, he wasn't like the first drug dealer that I went out with.
The offshore powerboat champions indicted for trafficking more than 75 tons of cocaine, the largest drug case in history.
Let the games begin, and they did.
They enjoy living on the edge, being like cat and mouse. See if you can find me.
They would get arrested, just change your ID, get new driver's licenses. That's Miami.
And the corruption, it's baked into the community. From the parish presidents in Louisiana to the land developers in Florida, the crime often happens in the light of day, disguised as progress or tradition.
Finally, the supernatural. You can't talk about these places without talking about what's lurking in the dark. In Louisiana, you've got the rougarou, the werewolf of the wood. In Florida, we have the chupacabra and skinwalkers. It's the same archetype, the wild thing that represents our own untamed nature.
It's the Southern Gothic element. The ghosts aren't just spirits, they're the weight of history. The plantations, the Indian reservations, all the way to the shipwrecks. Both states are built on the top of layers of trauma, and that manifests a feeling that you're being watched by something that was here long before the concrete was poured. And throughout Florida and in my career throughout the South, the idea of symbolic interactionism is prevalent. I was able to see different types of symbols throughout my criminology career, biker gangs for the most part, different types of religions that were a language of shared symbols. We saw some of this in True Detective with the spiral. That same spiral in my career came up on an FBI memo that was a symbol for pedophilia, believe it or not. And it was printed on money. It was used in jail correspondence, and eventually it was used in True Detective. So that was one evidence of things I saw in my career and how the authenticity of True Detective actually matched up. And additionally, throughout the South, there was this idea of like these borderland towns. Scientifically, it's called optimal foraging theory, and applied to criminology, I was able to see areas where the geography almost like disappeared, whether it was water, whether it was mountain terrain, jurisdiction-wise at the end of parishes in Louisiana or counties in Florida, you would usually see a criminal element around those areas. And through the South, what I was able to see is at the intersection of states, like in Florida, the Keys are at the end and the Panhandle's at the top. From a jurisdiction standpoint, criminal elements will gather there and be able to retreat to different areas based on jurisdiction and law enforcement.
Yeah, man, all good stuff there. And it's really like that Yellow King energy. You know, we correlate with obviously the True Detective series and then everything in the real world. the innocent souls and the real things you saw and witnessed 25 years in the field. It's that sense that there is a cosmic horror.
And Louisiana and Florida, they're cousins who don't talk to each other that much but share the same DNA. One's awake, the other's a party, but they're both held in the graveyard.
I'll take the long way round. Oh, I'll find my own way down. Oh, as I should. And hold your gaze. There's coke in the Midas touch. A joke in the way that we rust.
You look at a map of the South, and most people see vacation spots or history books. But you spent 25 years looking at the veins of these states from a different angle, the multi-level view of a man hunting other men. Miami Nights. Walk with me into the landscape. What does the South look like when you're looking for someone who doesn't want to be found?
It looks like a trap. In the north, in Boston and New York, they have alleys and subways, places to hide among people. But in the south, especially once you get into the neon lights of Miami or the French Quarter of Louisiana, the land itself becomes a cage. You're looking at this horizontal wilderness. Pine barrens, sawgrass, and humidity so thick it feels like a physical weight on your chest. When a man breaks out of a rural facility in the south, he isn't running for his freedom. He's running into a green darkness that's been swallowing secrets since the 1800s.
You've done the work in the trenches, from the local jails to the federal level. You often talk about this Louisiana parallel. To the casual observer, the bayou and the Everglades are just two different flavors of swamp. But in terms of the system here that you speak of, how do they mirror each other?
It's about the architecture of isolation. You look at Louisiana, the Paris system is unique. It's tribal. You have places like Angola, carved out of the bend in the Mississippi River. The water is the wall. It's Gothic, it's brutal, and it's haunted. Now, when you pivot to Florida, we don't have the parishes, but we have the glades. We have the rural camps and the panhandle. It's the same DNA. It's the environmental containment. Both states figured out a long time ago that you don't need a 20-foot stone wall if you have 50 miles of alligator-infested blackwater surrounding the yard.
So, the geography does the deputy's job for them. But what about the jails themselves? You've seen the lock and feed culture in these rural parishes. It's a different animal than what we see here in the Florida system.
It's a mirror image with a different tint. In the Louisiana parish jails, there's a sense of a lost time. It feels like the 1950s never left. It's raw. Florida is more industrial, more multi-leveled, but just as cold. In both places, fugitive apprehension becomes a game of endurance. When we're looking at tracking someone through that landscape, we aren't just looking for footprints. We're looking for the breaking point where the heat and isolation turn a man's shadow self against him.
You're talking about a psychological collapse.
Exactly. Every mile in the South is a psychological test. If you're a runner, you're thinking about the dogs, the helicopters, and the heat. But eventually you start thinking about the silence. The South is loud with nature, but the silence comes with its help. That's the defensible depth of our work. Understanding that the hunter has his land on his side, and the hunted has nothing but his own fading adrenaline.
It sounds like the landscape never stops taking its toll on the souls involved.
It doesn't. Whether it's the parish jail in the Delta or the maximum security block in the Florida Panhandle, the system is designed to diminish the soul until there's nothing left but the profile.
That's a heavy shadow to walk in.
It is, but that's why we're here. To shine a light in the parts of the map people are too afraid to touch. In some tracks, they don't lead to a person. They lead to a mirror.
So there's a direct parallel to Wayne Hayes in Season 3 of True Detective. Hayes was a long-range reconnaissance patrol soldier in Vietnam, a tracker who looks at a broken twig or a disturbed patch of dirt and sees a story from it.
And it's about the drift. Just as Hayes tracks the Purcell children in the Ozarks, a fugitive apprehension team has to account for the gravity of the land. People naturally follow paths of least resistance. downhill along the water, away from light.
I'll be back before the sun goes down, you understand? Yes, sir.
November 7th, 1980.
I didn't see the children, but I saw some older boys, teenagers, in a purple Volkswagen Bug. I saw the two kids riding out toward the park, but I didn't see any teenagers.
Get the APB out right away. I need as many troopers as highway can spare. Canine trackers. States isn't available, check with the sheriffs. We'll search the fields, the woods, put patrols on every street. High beams out, I want to light all this up.
And for our audience, please explain how the multi-level aspect you mentioned, local, state, federal layers, how they all actually mash or clash during a manhunt.
Well, you have the boots on the ground, the local deputies who know every deer trail, or for the most part, the terrain of the South. Then you have the suits, the federal and state officers who have the technology. For myself, I was the incident commander or the SWORD team leader for probably about 20 fugitive apprehension incidents throughout my career.
2 children are missing from a West Finger neighborhood. Will and Julie Purcell were last seen riding their bicycles west on Turpin Road, not far from Devil's Den State Park, around 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon. Police are calling on volunteers to aid in the search and are asking all residents to keep an eye out and report anything unusual they might have noticed or believe might be relevant to the case. The brother and sister are 12 and 10 and attend the West Finger school system.
And to go back to the dynamics, obviously in the heat of the chase, the rank on your shoulder matters less than the ability to read the runner's next move because everybody's on a clock. And leading up the response teams, time is not our friend when there's a fugitive on the loose. The first 60 minutes, for the most part, you're interviewing cellmates, you're looking at letters, you're looking at telephone logs, you're looking at social media, checking the blueprint of their mind and establishing, are they an alpha runner? Where are they from? Do they have gang affiliations? Do they have a sports background? For the most part, where do they grow up? Are they from the rural area or are they from the city, to get that idea? That would usually be an alpha runner profile. And then you have your desperation runners where they may have had a loss in the family. For the most part, they may have had an extended sentence and they don't really have a plan. They're really acting on impulse. So for the most part, what we were able to do, or what I was able to do very well, was build a profile to predict the offender's next move on the run, and really being proactive and determining based on time and based on heat from law enforcement where they're going next. For myself, leading multi-agency task force for apprehensions, obviously throughout a 25-year career, takes its toll. What I can tell you is, of the teams that I led up, no fugitive ever escaped and nobody in the public was ever hurt. So that's something from a public safety standpoint that I'm pretty proud of. And I think for the most part, talking about the weight, yeah, I mean, you're on the news, you're in the newspaper. I mean, you gain a reputation of a person who figures it out quickly. And a lot of it was a big reason that I walked away from it, to be honest with you, because I don't get phone calls at 3 a.m. anymore. I see things on the news and I observe, but I'm not interacting with that side of my old life. I'm able to move on and do things like I'm doing now. And ultimately, so much of it is about the intersection of duality. One thing that I was able to do very well in jails and institutions and prisons when there was a break was to be able to retrace the footsteps from the cell to the gate to the fence into the woods and determine for the most part, as if I was running, what that would look like. Not everybody in the field can do it. I was able to do it very well, but it's a blessing and a curse to be able to do that, because for the most part, it can be a challenge. It's a talent that serves its purpose. And for me, it did. And it protected community safety. And ultimately, it was time to walk away from it. And we see this in season 3. Hayes is haunted by the cases he didn't close. And in fugitive work, the ones who got away or the ones you found out too late become a part of your profile. And the thing about a prison break is that the walls are only the first layer. The real escape happens in your mind. And once that man is gone in your head, you're only hunting a person anymore. You're hunting a ghost.
So you see a lot of yourself in that character, don't you? It's like that silent observation.
I would say before my retirement, yes. Hayes ultimately knew that the crime scene isn't a snapshot, it's a map. When I was on those same response teams, I wasn't looking for the man, I was looking for the mistake. Every runner makes one. They lean against a tree they shouldn't, or they cross a creek at the wrong bend. You have to be patient enough to let the land tell you where they went wrong.
And how about when the land stays quiet?
Then you start looking at the people who are supposed to be watching the gate. Because in the South, sometimes the escape was helped along with the very system meant to stop it.
That containment doesn't just hold the body, it wears down the mind. When that alarm goes off and the response team is activated, what's that first hour like? Is it just chaos and sirens?
Chaos is for amateurs. For a response team, the first 60 minutes are about the predictive profiling. Before a single boot hits the mud, we're on the cell block. We're all through the institution. We're looking at inmates. We're looking at phone records. We're trying to figure out the blueprint of the why, for the most part, of why they left, not necessarily the how. And eventually, they just bleed into the swamp until the land of the law catches them.
So you're tracking a ghost through this drift.
Exactly. And every runner has a shadow. We use high-tech, forward-looking infrared and drones, but eventually tech fails into the canopy. Then it goes back to the old school sign cutting. We're looking for a broken twig, a disturbed patch of dirt, and the way sawgrass is matted. You have to account for the gravity of the land. People naturally follow paths of least resistance. They move downhill, they stay near water, they move away from the light. And you have to be patient enough to let the land tell you where they made their mistake.
This reminds me of Wayne Hayes in True Detective Season 2. He was a tracker, an LRRP in Vietnam. He didn't see a forest, he saw a story written in the dirt. You've mentioned before how that character resonates with the special operations mindset. Could you say more about that?
In the rural South, fugitive apprehension is exactly like Hayes' methodology. It's about the multi-layer. You have the local deputies that are basically setting up the perimeter, putting up spotlights, going door to door, canvassing for the most part. You have the traditional methodology of being able to set up a secure perimeter, being able to have individuals go into that perimeter and do a canvas search. But Hayes and his background and expertise, it's non-traditional. And Roland West actually gets questioned about it by one of the sheriffs, and he says he was in Vietnam and was a tracker, and lets Wayne do his thing, and eventually Wayne finds the boy who's been murdered.
So it sounds like you're describing a psychological collapse, not just for the hunted, but also for the hunter.
Every mile in the South is a test. If you're a runner, eventually the silence starts to scream. The South is loud with nature, but silent when it comes to help. That's the defensibility depth of the work, knowing the hunter has the land on his side, and the hunted has nothing but his own failing adrenaline.
You talk about the shadow self quite a bit, and we mentioned it on last episode of the pod and also once in season 1 of our podcast. So that idea has some tracks that don't lead to a person, but they lead to a mirror. Is there a specific moment where that light finally caught up with the shadow?
There's always a moment. People think these cases are solved by luck, but actually they're solved by persistence and the refusal to let a trail go cold. I remember a case back 20 years ago. There was an offender who thought the geography of the South and the anonymity of his own darkness would protect him. He thought he could move through the world unseen, leaving victims in his wake. He didn't realize that the profile had already been built. He didn't realize that while he was watching his targets, I was already predicting his next move.
So expand on that. Explain where he is now.
Well, going back to that case, it actually started with a Saturday morning phone call 20 years ago, and rewatching True Detective season 3, which I really recommend our audience to do. It's a phenomenal season that's very underrated. In the first episode, during that search, took me back to that case. And for myself, that case started on a average Saturday afternoon. I was planning just to watch football, and got a phone call, and the offender had a 4-hour head start. For the most part, the media was already involved, and I was immediately called to lead up the response team as the incident commander. In this case, for the most part, the town was in a huge panic, and this was before facial recognition, a lot of the forensics that we have today. So it was old school for the most part. I was able to walk in the offender's footsteps from the cell block. This is probably one of the most comprehensive jailbreaks that I ever been a part of, led up, to be honest with you. And this case in particular, there was no evidence that the fence had been altered or somebody had gone over it. And this was maximum security. And the video really wasn't that clear. And from the inside to the outside, it took me about 18 hours with our team. And ultimately, the offender was apprehended. Very much like some of the characters in True Detective, this offender's history kind of stayed with me a little bit. He stayed in the Southern correction system for a long time, and I would sometimes interact with him on a different jailbreak, actually, that I headed up and was called in to respond to. He was in the actual jail after I caught him, and he was in maximum security while another escape was happening. This podcast has really been a way to kind of unpack some of that stuff and lean into some of that stuff. And currently, for the most part, he's serving a very lengthy sentence in the South. And it's pretty much about it. I think for the community safety and for the innocent souls, this is the reason why we're doing this.
Well said, man. It's awesome how you can reflect on your career. And even though it's like, there's retirement that you're in, all this stuff still lingers with you. It's still in your mind. It's still, it can motivate you. It can make you want to tell a story, but I'm sure it can also make you reflect, and, you can carry that weight with you. So it's great you can use this podcast as a way to express all that and, be open and raw with the listeners and the innocent souls out there. And that's what it's all about. So ultimately, would you say the light is still winning?
Absolutely. And I think when it comes to our podcast, this is truly about lesson learned. This is not about war stories or reminiscing about the good old days of the past. I think the lessons that I learned throughout my career and in my life, and the mentors that I was blessed to kind of guide me, I'm just trying to pay it forward, to be honest with you. The team that I have on this podcast that are phenomenal, to our audience and our listeners, that our content resonates across genres. And, for people that are still in the field or out of the field, and, for the most part, a lot of this podcast is for all of them. Again, I think it really goes back to the lessons and having a voice and being able to really develop content every week that resonates with people internationally is really the reason that we're doing this and the reason that we will continue to do this throughout this season.
Awesome, man. So now shifting gears. This is our Innocent Souls segment. If you've ever driven I-75 between Naples and Fort Lauderdale at 3 a.m., you know what it feels like. Alligator Alley. 75 miles of absolute darkness, flanked by sawgrass and water that doesn't move. In the podcast world, we call it the Highway of the Dead. It's a unique kind of isolation. You've got the canal on one side and the fence on the other. Once you're on that stretch, you're in a tunnel. If something happens to you out there, you aren't just off the grid, but you're in the gut of the glades.
And for decades, that's exactly why people have used this as a dumping ground. It's a place where the distance between the missing person and the unsolved cave is measured in the miles of the swamp.
Let's look at the history here. So in the mid-70s, South Florida was gripped by the flat tire murders. You had a string of young women, Donna Gail Kammerer, Diane Tinsley, whose bodies were found in the canals and remote roadsides of Broward and Dade. Some of those leads pointed straight toward the alley.
The MO was chilling. The killer would target women who appeared to have car trouble, or he'd cause the trouble. On a road like Alligator Alley, before cell phones, a flat tire wasn't an inconvenience. It was a death sentence. You were at the mercy of whoever stopped.
And back then, law enforcement wasn't talking across county lines like they do now. A body in Collier County and a body in Broward were two different worlds, even if they were only 40 miles apart on the same strip of asphalt.
There's a theory among cold case investigators that the alley has been a dumping ground for at least 3 different serial killers throughout the 80s. We've seen names like Robert Neil Rodriguez, the former cop turned killer, knew exactly how to use the remote geography of Florida to his advantage.
Rodriguez was a nightmare because he knew the system. But then you have the ones we don't have names for, the canal killers. There's a specific pattern of victims found in the water along the alley. Unidentified Jane Does who were clearly brought there. It wasn't a crime of passion. It was a logistical choice.
It's the dumping ground logic. You toss something in those canals, and between the current and the gators, the evidence is gone before the sun comes up. It's a graveyard that cleans itself.
If we're talking innocent souls, we have to mention the absolute darkness of the Harold Brady case. In the late 90s, he kidnapped a 5-year-old girl, Quatisha Maycock, and literally left her in the sawgrass of Alligator Alley to be taken by the elements and the predators.
That's the soul-crushing part of this job. Seeing the absolute lack of humanity. That little girl in her pajamas, abandoned in a place that's hostile to even grown men. It changed the way people looked at that road. It wasn't just a shortcut anymore. It was a place of active malice.
It's why drivers don't stop anymore. You see a car on the shoulder of the alley now, you call it in, but you keep your doors locked. The Good Samaritan died out there a long, long time ago.
Alligator Alley is a scar across the heart of Florida. Thousands of people drive it every day to get to the beach or the office, never realizing they're passing within feet of secrets that may never be told.
The Broward Sheriff's Office is investigating how a woman ended up dead on the side of Alligator Alley. The Florida Highway Patrol first learned of the woman shortly after 7 a.m. She was found in the southbound lanes of I-75 near mile marker 42. FHP says BSO is now handling the investigation. BSO told us this is an ongoing death investigation.
The Glades don't give up their dead easily. Every time they expand the lanes or clear the brush, something else surfaces. A bone, piece of clothing, a reminder. As of tonight, along this stretch of Florida limestone and water, there remain nearly 175 unsolved murders. Voices lost to the sawgrass, waiting for someone to finally hear them. Before we close the books on today's episode, I want to take a moment to look at where we've been and where the shadows are leading us next. As we're dissecting the forensic excavation of Nick Pizzolatto's soul, how he took that heavy, ritualistic atmosphere of his Lake Charles upbringing and transmuted it into the Louisiana Gothic of Season 1 of True Detective. It's a reminder to us that the most haunting stories aren't just written, they're survived.
When I go, don't cry for me. In my Father's arms I'll be.
We saw that same weight reflected in our Sons of Detective segment with Wayne and Henry Hayes of Season 3 of True Detective. There's a profound, somber truth in the erosion of memory. That eventual role reversal where the son becomes the guardian of the father's vanishing reality. It's the ultimate psychological inheritance. Speaking of phantoms, the Jennifer Kess case remains that chilling void right here in our Florida backyard. That grainy footage of a face obscured by a fence. It's the literal manifestation of the unseen watcher. That's what's coming up on Next Case of our Innocent Souls segment in episode 4 of season 2. Now, to more take a look on what's coming on social media, you all spoke and we listened. After Miami Night 17 dropped a post on the subreddit and watched it climb over 400 upvotes in just a single day, the mandate for our next episode became clear. Next week, we'll be further diving headlong into the industrial sprawl and civic rot of True Detective Season 2. If you're joining us on Apple Podcasts, hit that plus sign in the top right to follow. Spotify crew will have an episode poll where we need your input on our upcoming projects as we transition into this next chapter. Your vote helps us determine which dark corner we shine the light on next. Feel free to email us your questions and unsolved cases at truedetectivepodcast17@gmail.com. That's truedetectivepodcast17@gmail.com.
I'm Miami Night 17 with MR Floyd. This has been Innocent Souls in the Hands of the Yellow King. Keep your eyes on the data because the data doesn't blink.
All my tears be washed away. All my tears be washed away.